everyone. Welcome to this new episode of KCrush American Magazine. I'm your host, Carolyn Hinds, film culture critic and journalist. And this is going to be my very first interview for 2024 for KCrush. So, yeah. And today I am joined by my friend and fellow podcaster and K-pop and K-drama enthusiast, Ashley Borjon, to talk about her work as a podcaster, content creator, and all around, I think, go-getter, because Ashley is someone, like, if she puts her mind to something, she's going to do it. And I met Ashley. We've known each other now.
Oh my gosh. Is it about 3 years?
Well, this is 2024, but if you technically about 3 and some years.
3 and some change, yes.
And one of the reasons that and the reason I'm even working with KCrush is because of Ashley, because she's the one who put me into contact with the EIC for the site. So I'm always very grateful to Ashley for giving me for introducing me, because I would not only be doing this, but I've never been able to do all the coverage that I've been doing for KCrush over the last year and a half. So it's and I'm so happy to have her join me today. So thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you. Happy to be here. It's very odd to be on the interviewing side for KCrush after doing work with them and for them for so many years. So.
I know, right? And you also previously interviewed me because because you used to have and you haven't done it in a while because you had to take a mental health break, but it was like this day dedicated to KCrush, to K-pop and K-drama fans to come together online and have this community day to talk about not only dramas and films and K-pop, but about mental health. It's about raising mental health awareness and to also raise funds for mental health initiatives. So I want to actually start our talk there because they said this is how we met, but it's also, I think, such an important part of what you do, which is making sure that in all the fun that we do, that we take time for our mental health and take time for ourselves. So talk to me first about having that be a very important part of your work as a content creator, because you began a podcast a day in 2019, but you always made sure that you use the podcast for raising awareness for mental health. So talk about making sure that you centering your work around mental health awareness.
Absolutely. The K-pop Social Night Podcast Fest, KPSN Podcast Fest, was the brainchild of my old team at MacG Productions when I used to have a 360 media company, basically. And at that time, it was the height of COVID, and it was ultimately looking like we were not going to be able to fiscally endure another year of business. So we had reached 5 years. We did a lot of amazing things, ran some different magazines like MacG Magazine, Soul Wave. We acquired that and did work with them, Michael Smith Grant's team for a while, and a few other really awesome things, the ASA Awards. But KPSN, K-pop Skate Night, originally when it started.
Is that what it means?
That's what it started as. K-pop Skate Night in 2014. There was nothing like that. And my good girlfriend, who was also a co-founder of my business, her name is Christina Cortez, her and I came together and with the guidance of my former manager and former co-founder, Natasha Pipkins, we had a vision of, it's very hard to help people understand what this whole K-pop thing is in Metro Houston. Most people were familiar with Japanese animation and all of that, but this was still very niche at that time. So we identified a way where we allowed young adults and whatnot to be able to enjoy a safe environment, meet new friends who had the same interests as them, and inundate their families to it in a way that made sense to them. They grew up roller skating. They grew up doing things actively out in the community where our generation and the generation below us pretty much develop online. So that's where it started. But when we eventually pivoted away from doing skating events, we did do a merger with another company for a while, and that folded rather drastically. And I kept the legal protection of the letters KPSN. So we were able to change it to K-pop Social Night, and we started doing things online. So 2020 comes, the pandemic is in full swing, and we're like, we're not doing well. both the heartache of the business ending. Some of us had already experienced some losses as soon as the pandemic started between March and June. Well, July in the United States is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and my business was fully built on the backs and the visions of minorities. So we also were always very vocal about our own well-being and wellness pursuits and whatnot, in the mentoring and promotion of things that we did. So we came together and we're like, hey, this is a last ditch effort. If we're going out, then at least the business needs to go out on a bang on something positive. We have always been about the community, so let's continue that. So we did a one-day event in the first weekend following 4th of July in the US and did very well. We got really awesome pledges and whatnot. And then I got all these messages of people saying, hey, you're going to do it again next year. And I'm like, well, I don't have a team anymore. So it was a matter of getting volunteers and whatnot. But the efforts of the volunteers between 2020, 2021, and 2022, when we've done it, no matter what they've done, it's almost always appeared as if it was always me doing it exclusively, which was never true. And the marketing never presented it as such. Anything where we were talking about it for PR purposes, we always acknowledged that there were a team of people who were kind enough to share their time, interview other people, talk about their mental health journeys, how this type of entertainment helped them in their healing processes and whatnot. And when we finished the 2022 one, I realized if this doesn't become an official arm of its own that has a committed team to fully focus on it, I won't be able to sustain it. So I had the intention of stepping down after 22's event, and it was a 2-day event. And it was really, really awesome. A lot of time consumption, but very impactful. We didn't quite reach our $1,200 goal, but the year before that, we raised $1,000, and I know we raised just under $600 for the final year of it. So the money goes directly to the National Association for for Mental Illness, NAMI, NAMI, and they use that to be able to put on more advocacy programs and things of that sort. So it's a lasting legacy. And although we weren't able to do it last year, and KPSN officially closed as of last year after a lot of conversations about the potential of an acquisition from a much more prominent brand, it just didn't happen. So I think that was a positive legacy to leave behind, that yes, we like K-pop or we like Asian entertainment, not being in any of the Asian countries, but it doesn't make anything drastically different. A lot of us found this when we were looking for something to fill a void. And oftentimes, this is a part of our wellness journey. I found all of this stuff in 2012 after the dismantling of my mental and physical health and my first marriage. So I found healing, and I found community and lifelong friendships and cultural enrichment in ways I'd never expected by way of all of this. So I feel like it was a huge parting number in 2022 to leave on that note. And I still get people sometimes, they'll send a message and they're like, man, you're not doing it again. It's like, no, not that I don't want to, but what it asks of me, it asks a lot of everyone who would participate. And we're just not at that point yet. Who knows? It might come back. Who knows? But whatever the case may be, it'll be very clear that it's not just on my back and not just on my vision.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, we're like so many things you mentioned that we're going to talk about. Like you mentioned 2012, that's being the pivotal year that you discovered you really got into K-pop, and it led to where you are now. And like I know a lot of people are gonna like always associate you with K-pop. Right. And like, because that's a legacy you've made for yourself. And we're definitely going to talk about that. But something I really want us to talk about is having an identity outside of K-pop. And when I say that, I mean having identities outside of what people really know as far. Like people will know me for film criticism and being very open about it. And like, doing my YouTube channels and my podcast. But
yes.
Also, I always tell people I have other interests outside of these things. Like I don't make that my identity. And as I said, we'll be connected through K-pop and so many of the other people that I met through being a part of the KPSN events, I'm still very close friends with. Like, we are still in DM chats, and we talk about other things apart from K-pop. And like, for this website, KCrush American Magazine, it's not just about K-pop, you know.
Not at all.
Asian entertainment and Asian media. Like, I'm doing the film coverage for the website, but there's people doing coverage of Japanese music, of Taiwanese music, things from Thailand, China, Hong Kong, and all these things. And I always want to stress to people is, don't make one thing your identity. Don't make K-pop your identity. Don't make film your identity, you know. Don't make, especially as people of color in particular. I think we have to be very careful to not infantilize as well as fantasize other people of color, because it can be very, like, if you look at, especially you, as you well know, a lot of people in the K-pop community have gotten this have this thing where they look at K-pop. I don't even like calling them idols, strictly for the fact, partly because of my very Christian upbringing, where you know the Bible says, don't have any other gods or idols beyond me. But also, it's about, to me, I look at when people call a human being idol, you're placing them above everyone else. You know, you're saying that they're above reproach. They can't be criticized. They can't be critiqued. They can't be analyzed. And but also part of that, especially in K-pop and whether in K-dramas and anime and looking at these kind of things, is like, oh, this person is also so special. How dare you critique them?
Not the least bit. I'm going to critique, which is how my podcast came to be, you know.
Which is exactly what your podcast is about. A3, the podcast, I keep wanting to say A3Day and think in my head at the exact same time, so I'm getting the words mixed up. But that's exactly what your podcast is about. It's about, yes, acknowledging the history of K-pop and talking about both the good and the bad of K-pop, right? And like, if people listen to your podcast and when you tweeted about, you would also say, yeah, this is an amazing art form and everything, but let's not forget the history of where it came from, and let's not forget the struggles of these artists behind the scenes, you know? Like, let's not hypersexualize these people, because the bodies that you're hypersexualizing are being honed and crafted through physical abuse, starvation, dehydration, malnourishment, you know? Like, they have, like, you say, oh, this person has all this abs, look amazing. They're not eating for like 2 or 3 days before they do a magazine shoot. You know, they're not drinking water so that their body becomes dehydrated. And
so they look like that.
Muscles pop out. And like, that's not just for K-pop, that's in every entertainment industry. When you see people do these magazine shoots, they literally starve themselves and don't drink any liquids. And maybe except for coffee, because coffee dehydrates you. More attractive. And like, you talk about all these things on the podcast, and we talk about these same things on the KPSN podcast days. Like, this is a lot of discussions we have. So that's also one of the things I want to, in talking to you about, have people kind of look at the Ashley behind the podcast and say, you don't only, like, you haven't made K-pop your identity, you know, you've made it a very lucrative career, and you've made a legacy for yourself in the space of being a historian, legitimate historian. But it's also like letting people know Ashley is more than
it was a battle for that initially. I started to identify that it was pigeonholing me around 2016. So when I got into this, as I said, it was a tumultuous time in my life, a really jacked up time. I was born here in Houston, which is where I live now. And I lived here for a few years, but I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and have lived in a few different places, not because of military, but just because that's what life did. And at the time that I came across all of this, I was living in basically Koreatown, LA, and I was familiar with the food, but not the culture in the least bit. And when I got into this, my intention initially, podcasting was never new for me. I had been doing podcasting for a while, just slice of life commentary as a teacher, because that's what my full-time work was predominantly in at that time. And when I got into this, I had a few YouTube videos here and there, but nothing solid. It was just another outlet for me to connect with other people. Then I got heavily in it in that second wave of music video reactors, MV reactors, or Hallyu commentators, for lack of better terms. There was a massive influx of us right around when KCON got larger. So from 2012 2012 to 2016, I would float around and do the KCons here in the US. I had a goal of doing KCon as a panelist after 2 years, and I accomplished it in one by way of networking and solid connections. And I made such an impactful experience with that it allowed me to be able to consult for films and private companies and a lot of beta testing, both here and in South Korea, long before I had ever put a toe in Korea. But around 2015, 2016, after a lot of requests for me to moderate or participate on panels about cultural influences, cultural misappropriation that we constantly confuse as cultural appropriation, and just dissecting the musicality of everything through my great moments in production and delivery experience, as I had industry experience in the US on the AR side in terms of work. I'm like, this is becoming all that I'm known for, despite the fact that I mentor, I have helped other YouTubers and other small businesses and content creators through web design, through PR training, things of that sort. I said, I got to find a way to pivot. I'm not going to walk away from this because I absolutely adore it, even if it becomes very nuanced after a while. So by the time 2019 came, I had been living in South Korea for just over a year and a half. I was cusping into the 2-year point. And I'd made the mind up. I'm like, well, at that time, it's like, I'm not getting married again. I'm definitely not having children, but I need to have my own personal life. So the only way that I can figure out how to make this work, where I still maintain a sense of relevance in this field, and I'm still talking about something I'm passionate about, but you don't have to see me all the time. I need to pivot back to podcasting. I need to go back to it. So April 2019, in my small apartment in South Korea, I just started.
Exactly. I listened to the tape for the first episode.
Yes. I started from number one, literal one time. And there's over 30 to 40 years of music. And I'm just getting deep into the letter A at this point. And I was able to share my thoughts, the histrionics behind it, the musicality behind it, but also my opinionated commentary. And over the years of doing the podcast, the episodes went from about 15 minutes to 10 minutes. So they are concise. I can get it done and you can listen to a whole season in an hour because I'm giving you referential points of what the music is, what you're going to be listening for, what it compares to the Western ear and blah, 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 blah. And also providing a platform for other podcasters to be able to talk about their excitement about K-drama and K-pop and things of that sort through A3Day sister show. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I came back to the United States begrudgingly. I came back on a mission. I came back with the intention of let me finish a graduate degree so that I can go ahead and move back to South Korea permanently. That was the plan in 2020. Well, it's 2024 now, and I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of marriage. So obviously, life changed in ways that I had not anticipated, but the groundwork was already being laid for me to be able to have a private life. Yes, I'm a music producer. Woohoo. This is the 9th year of doing that. Yes, I am a content creator. Yes, this, and this. I own businesses and blah, 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 blah. But I'm an introvert. Nobody ever believes that because what they have always seen was multifaceted ACG, who I used to be. And they always saw the energy that I had in that and whatnot, the performance of that persona. But I'm an introvert. I like reading my little books on my cell phone. I collect certificates and things like UX design and instructional stuff. I've got a lot of degrees. I'm a nerd. And I like wine. I'm studying that to become a certified wine educator. But those things would never have a chance if I didn't start to systematically pull back from this is the persona you know, and introducing who I am in other facets to my audience. The majority of my audience is still around, which is mind-blowing to me because I don't make active videos and my podcast has been on hiatus for quite some time so that I could tend to some very serious things going on with my health, as well as get my academic legs under me so that I can finish this graduate degree this year. But it was a process introducing Ashley, the human, versus Mac G, or multifaceted ACG, the YouTube lady or the panel moderator. It took time. It took time. When I was able to cover the festival that launched last spring for KCrush in Las Vegas, I had a benefit of people who have never left the industry knowing who I was, but I didn't expect any of my Megwalas, my fan base, my supporters to be there. And I was interviewing a gentleman, talking to him, and I wasn't saying much, but as soon as I opened my mouth, some of these people grew up listening to me. I was online for 10 years. So I was their middle school and high school, or I was their high school and college. And as soon as you hear a voice that you know that familiar to you, this young woman turned around and her eyes were just welling with tears. And I'm like, what's going on? I wasn't prepared. And she's like, I know who you are. And she grabbed my hand. She's like, I don't mean to freak you out or anything. She said, is it okay if I take a photo with you and just tell you thank you? Thank you for being a part of some of the happiest moments in the darkest days of my life. And I'm hearing this, and I'm just a normal, everyday being. I cannot imagine if this was someone who had far more celebrity than I did with my little 10 minutes or 15 minutes of fame. But you impact people so deeply. And one of the things that she left me with is, I'm glad that you're happy and that you stepped away to do what you needed to do for you. Anybody deserves that peace of mind, no matter what you're doing, be it an author, a commentator, anything where we are intended to be front facing. You still have to have that balance of having who you are and knowing who and whose you are, so that you can maintain a sense of genuine integrity and genuine peace. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the interview you did with the artist, right? Wasn't it the guy who did the artwork for the displays there?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that because I did watch those when you released them. And it was the one in last. It was because you guys know I am terrible with names. Like, I forget my own name. I'm not even joking. That's part of the cognitive impairment. But it was the K-pop festival in Las Vegas, and you had gone. And I remember watching that, and like you were interviewing the Japanese artists who had done artwork that was displayed throughout the different areas of the convention hall. I remember watching that, and it was like, and that's the thing is like, I think to me this is just my opinion. I think I being known for having the courage to step away from something that you love, to do it because you love yourself more. I think I would prefer to be known for something like that than to be like obsessed with K-pop. Because the thing is like K-pop is just entertainment, you know.
It's just entertainment, and it's superficial.
And it's very superficial because a lot of what people identify with K-pop is just very surface level stuff. Like who they see the people are on stage. Like these are all personas, you know, when they do like their V-Lives, their vlogs, everything they do on social media, it's all a persona, you know? Mm-hmm. So like, that's why, as you say, you shouldn't make standing these people a part of your identity and your personality, because when it's revealed that they're colorist, they're racist, they're bigoted, they're sexist, and
they're going to disappoint you.
And they're going to disappoint you because if you understand,
it's realistic.
Because if you understand Korean culture, you will acknowledge that many of these K-pop artists have the very same conservative and bigoted views that Korean society, and not generalizing, but Korean society is still struggling with. So to have someone come up to you and say, the fact that you stepped away for your own mental health is what I will remember you for, what I respect you for. To me, I think that's more important than say, oh my God, I love you because you covered this K-pop group on your thing. I love
really
that.
It touched my heart, because that's what and I won't say I'm used to hearing that. That's not true. I didn't often have people come up to me and be very excited about the coverage I've done about their artists. A lot of them are like, you told the truth about that. I don't know if I would have done that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you wouldn't have, but that's why I do. But Often I have people show up in messages and whatnot. The award that I'm hoping to win at the end of the month, I had a woman who's 57 years old, had no idea that she watches my content or anything. And she's like, just your honesty and the fact that you didn't bend in any way. You went to Korea and you did what you needed to do while you were there. But the content you make and the way that you express your opinions and whatnot, that's irreplaceable. We miss that voice in this space. On occasion, people will message me and tell me they miss me on Twitter and things of that sort. I refuse to call it what Elon calls it. But but you know, everything has its season, and that season has passed. What I do and what I intend to do is on the horizon. But those things, you know, they deserve to have an opportunity to lay at rest. So.
Yeah, like being honest, I think should be the most important thing, because like in my work, I'm as honest as I possibly can. Yep. And you know, and in my honesty, I'm also able, like, if I'm wrong, I'll also admit that I'm wrong, but I'll tell people, you know what, I have a problem with how, for instance, a film is portraying a character, how a film is portraying a country, a culture, that kind of stuff. And sometimes in my head, I'm thinking, does this really matter? You know, like every single day, I'm not even joking, every single day I get up and I think, do I still want to continue doing this work? Yeah. You know, and because the film industry is very hard to be in as a Black woman. Being a Black female film critic and journalist is very hard, but also being the type of critic and journalist that I am, where I'm, you know, like I'm critiquing the culture in the industry as much as I'm critiquing the films. Yep. You know, and I'll be like, is all of the, and I'm like, I know people be being shady and passive aggressive and making comments about me, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, am I proud of what I said? You know, like, absolutely. And then I'll have some of the same people that I'm critiquing, whether it be publicists, film directors, or whoever. They'll come up to me in person at film festivals, and they'll be like, you know what? I didn't say this on the TL, but I appreciate you always being honest. You know, I have people DM me and say, I appreciate that you're being honest in your opinions about the film industry.
And it's so unfortunate that honesty is a commodity that can be manipulated. Like the fact that we get those kind of messages and things of that sort, people are assuming there's going to be gaslit or a shoe that has to fall and all of that. And it doesn't have to be. You're never going to please everyone. There are very, very big moments of absolute screw up based on ignorance or ego, in my case, that I remember and I learned from. And sometimes you can't always redeem yourself from everything, but it boils down to exactly what you said. Am I proud of what I did? Can I still look at myself in the mirror after what I said or wrote or did? Then that's who I have to deal with. I can shut the masses out, but I have to be able to look at Ashley and be like, well, you did the best you could. So, you know, I totally get that. Honesty is something that is desperately needed in all sectors of entertainment, not just life, because that's one of those things that should be a minimum that we already know can be pushed on. But in entertainment, have integrity with your music, have integrity with your artistry. I don't necessarily feel like everything has to be prim and proper. There's a space for everything. And if it's not for you, then don't consume it and be done with it. And I feel like we're walking into a new era of that. I think people are getting a little tired of the gossipy commentary and whatnot. Some people still enjoy it, but it doesn't feel as intense these days. It seems to be much more effort to seek out stories of justice, injustice being corrected, cultural acknowledgement, financial compensation being correct. It just seems like it's a very interesting time in mixed media.
No, I agree, because all of the gossipy stuff, the cattiness, the brattiness, the disingenuousness, like at the end of the day, it's not really productive. No. You know, and at the end of the day, like you don't gain anything from it, like within yourself. You're listening to a podcast or a YouTube channel or reading an article where all the person is doing is being negative and you're not critiquing with the intent to educate or to hope for something beneficial to come out of it. You're just being critical for the sense to be for the purpose of being negative, because you're like, oh, this is going to get clicks, this is going to get thing. And at the end of the day, you're like, I learned nothing from that. It's not edifying, you don't grow, like it doesn't leave a positive permanent impact on you. Like what you're left with is the impression that you're left with is negative. And like, you're like, oh, I got into a stan war on Twitter over a K-pop group. I'm like, these people don't care about you. So
they don't even know you.
They don't know you. And then at the end of the day, okay, what has this done for you as a person? Do you think 5 years down the road, you're really going to look back on yourself and be proud of the things that you've said and done on behalf of people that you don't know? Are you using your platform? Yeah, you're talking about K-pop. Okay, you love K-pop, but are you using your fan enthusiasm to say, you know what, these people should be treated better? But they should also be held accountable for the things that they say and do. And
are you going to stand on what it is that you said? Like, I distinctly remember so many people were like, you're not doing KCON anymore. I don't remember the person or persons that they wanted to be there, but I made my stance very loud and public and clear about this is no longer the best thing for me and who I am at this point. Now, if they're open to these things being changed, then I'm all about conversing about that and being put on payroll to make it happen. However, if not, then, continue to enjoy it. I would go to the concerts, but I don't have a desire to be a part of the convention anymore. It's a cultivated experience that's not telling all sides of the story. And that's okay for those who enjoy that. It's just not for me,
Exactly. And the thing is that, and we're going to talk about now, but how they're standing up for yourself and having those principles is having payoffs, because the podcast A3Day was put on hiatus, as we said at the beginning, because you needed to look after your mental health as well as your physical health first. And like at the end, I was doing editing for you for the podcast, and I remember, and I told you, and it was just like, I am so happy just to be able to do this, because it's just like being here. You're right. The way you think is very similar to mine. So like you would go have the thought process.
Yes.
And everything happening as you were recording, and I'd be like giggling. But like, and like for a lot of people that you were saying, there people were saying, oh, will it ever come back? And like for me, I was a very small part of it for a very short space of time, and I value that. But then I remember when you said, okay, I'm going to take a break, and it was just like, oh, but you're paying dividends for that now, because you've been nominated for a podcast award. So like for the Sonic Bloom Award, and this is happening when your podcast is on hiatus. Which is amazing. And the reason, like, it's on to me, like that's the reason why I started started this discussion talking about mental health and how you use mental health as a big part of your work, because highlighting mental health, highlighting your own mental health and prioritizing that is being recognized by people within the podcast community. Like that's being recognized. And it shows that you don't have to run yourself to the bone to be recognized. It shows that you don't have to sacrifice your health and your body to have acknowledgement of what you're doing. It shows that people who value you will support you, and it's like the people who only care about you creating content and forget about that, they're not really the ones that you're making this content. I'm not really using the word content for, but this is the ones that you're making content for, the people that value what you have to say, but also value you as a person. And that's paying off. And it's paying off. So talk about having your and to me, because this is again something that I think about, because as you know, because our last interview with each other for KPSN, the KPSN Day, where we talked about me and my mental health as a film critic and everything. So now we're having kind of like a full
circle moment.
We're talking about your mental health and how that plays into your work. So talk about how in having the time of your looking after yourself is having dividends and payoffs in your career.
It's shocking, first and foremost. I had entered into the Quill Podcast Awards in 2021, and I entered what is it, the Shorty Awards many years ago. So I knew what it was to submit and hope. But last year was redemptive in ways that I wasn't prepared for. When I pulled away from podcasting and everything, I was facing a potential breast cancer diagnosis. And I had just been laid off from the best paying job I had ever had, which ironically, they posted today that they are looking for people to return to those roles. Go figure.
Get out of the way.
But I'd just gotten married New Year's Eve, moved 2 weeks later. My car gave out and we had to purchase a new one. And then 36 hours later, I was laid off. And then I went to the doctor with the great insurance from that job, only to find out that there was something in my body invasively. So it was a very tumultuous time. And I was in school, which was just ignorant. I had to pull away, or else I was going to break the momentum of what existed. I had just gotten the money together where I could afford a team to be able to help in the ways I needed it most. I can record myself, but editing a podcast, it's granular work. It's tedious, and you get tired of hearing your voice after a while. And my day work is in nonprofit career services, for lack of better terms. It's the easiest way to sum it up. So I'm hearing myself talk all day long. So to do that and then turn around and have to hear an album a day is my ex. I'm like, no. So I had just gotten to a point where I could afford. Yes, I could finally get it. I can't stand to hear it. And I had to stop, and I had to stop abruptly. I let the team know, and I'm like, I don't have a set date for return. We're just going to go with indefinite hiatus for the time being. In the midst of all that, I was a part of the Podcast Academy on scholarship. Spotify paid for a select amount of us to be members for 1 year. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to maximize on that experience, but it doesn't remove the fact that I was a member for a year of an organization that's not that old, but is formidable in the space. And another organization called She Podcasts had an award that I had heard of before, but I'm like, well, I don't qualify for anything in that. Sonic Bloom Awards recognizes podcasting projects that are created and spearheaded by women and those who identify as minorities. And it's an honor to be acknowledged, not only just to be a nominee, but to make it to be a finalist. No expectation of that whatsoever. Then on top of that, my finalist award, the category that I am a finalist in is the innovators, and mine would be the socialite, because I have utilized my platform in enough ways to be able to amplify myself, to be able to get into some very interesting circles, very interesting realms. So from the website, I'm quoting it. It says the Socialite Award is an honor given to a podcaster who has effectively used social media to promote and grow their podcast. This award recognizes and celebrates the efforts of individuals who have been able to effectively use social media to engage a large audience, who have made a significant impact on the podcasting industry through their social media efforts. I'm like, okay, I just submitted. I didn't know where I would fall in. That's what they grabbed. And then I didn't even know I was nominated. I just happened to be checking an email and it was like, hey, we're confirming that you're a finalist. And I'm like, oh, so I find that out. And then a week after finding that out, now I'm a nominee for the People's Choice Award. It's mind blowing.
I saw that and I was wondering, is it the actual People's Choice Award? I was wondering if it was a People's Choice Award within the podcasting body or the actual People's Choice Award.
The People's Choice of listeners. So listeners for a certain window of time were able to submit that they wanted me to win that award. And I know my listener base showed out. The numbers that my podcast pulled last year, even though I was on hiatus, I had an extravagant growth, one that it doesn't make numerical sense. I'm pulling up the numbers so that I can share it. It makes no sense to have a podcast grow this large during a time where you're sitting down and you're trying to take good care of yourself. My podcast on Spotify alone last year had a 999% increase of listenership. That's not even that number makes no sense. That makes zero sense. It's basically because of 2 a.m. and Joe Kwan. That's just how it happened. But it was streamed 999% more than anything else at that time. And all of this is going on while I'm nowhere near a podcast microphone. I'm not even using the podcast app. I'm not listening to anything. I'm solely tending to my health. So to come back to this, it's hard to say no. It's hard to continue a hiatus when there's so much music happening and so much that I miss. And I announced my hiatus June 1st of last year, and my 5th anniversary of podcasting is coming up. It's hard to just stay away. So not confirming, not denying anything. I'm just
special podcast episode because when I was making my notes for this, like, and I went back looking at the first episode. I listened to the first episode, the one from 2019.
Yep.
Like, K-pop has changed so much since 2019. And you know what's ironic? And I know like people who are like all new into K-pop or whatever are going to be like take issue with this, but I find it ironic because to me that was the last great year of K-pop. And I mean this objectively. This is not just my opinion, but I'm talking to people who've been into K-pop longer than I have. I only really got into K-pop around, is it 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, where I saw Fantastic Baby got released. I was in Pacific Mall. I saw Fantastic Baby dropped on the YouTube channel on the TV, and I was like, "Oh wait, hold on, that looks like." And I was just like, let me take a cursory glance into K-pop, and
that is how you get in.
Fantastic Baby, my big fan was I've known K-pop before them, but that was when it was really like, let me really sit down and listen to this music because I knew about girls like
Girls' Generation and everything.
Like Girls' Generation, all that before, and I've listened to a few songs, but that's when it was really like take a concerted effort to sit down and actually listen to K-pop. But people that I know who've been into K-pop, like with like yourself and who've been into it like years before me, were like, that was actually the last great year.
2017 through 2019, that was the last chunk.
The music that's been released now, the content, the like social, how it's engaged on social media, the TikTok challenges, which I think are played out, and then I'm like, bury that horse and let it rest in peace. I wish to take a break from that. But like K-pop has changed so much over in that 5-year span. I'm like thinking, wouldn't it be great if Ashley actually did like a kind of retrospective of how K-pop has changed in the last 5 years, and
the irony of that is when I had a magazine of my own, we did a retrospective in 2017. Between 2012 and 2017, so much dynamically occurred. And now we're back on the precipice of this again. Now we're at a point where K-pop really doesn't mean anything anymore. The novelty of the K is gone. We have entirely non-Korean ethnic artistry and whatnot, and it's a wild time. But like I said, I can't confirm or deny anything.
Don't do it, that's fine too. But if you did it, that's fine too. Because for me, I'd also love to do something with regards to like Korean film and K-dramas and how that's changed within the last 5 years, because there has been a significant change. But the other reason I mentioned it, not only from the retrospective, but is like, I think for the human body, I'm going to get scientific now. The human body actually changes every 5 to 7 years. Every 7 years, the human body chemically and physically changes. That's when our body is like, let me shed all these old cells and start fresh. Like the face that I had 7 years ago was completely different.
It's completely different.
The skin, everything internally, I don't have cells from 7 years ago. All these cells I have in my body are 7 years old. And I think that's a part of like I hate using the word content because the word content has such a commodified context
Yes,
to
it does.
but
Media.
it's just
We
like
got to go back to the word of media.
right? Media, right? So like the thing is like for us, for the work that you do, like being able to just be able to look back on all the work that you've done, you know, starting before you even started to cover K-pop or before you got into the industry, started really paying attention to it in 2012. But like being able to look back and say, I've done this, I've done that. Like, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like you're at a point, a pivotal point in your own life and career where you are having style change. You know, you're like reevaluating your own goals and achievements for yourself. And
Yes.
while it's amazing to be recognized by people from the outside of your achievements and of showing appreciation for your work, like being able to value yourself and be able to say, you know, I'm proud of this, and like, but I'm also, if I have to move on, I'm going to move on. You know,
Yep.
so talk about making that, because I think that's something that we as human beings, something we have to do. We have to say, you know what, I don't need to go back in order to feel like I'm validated. I don't need to go back to feel like what I'm doing is worthwhile. You know, if you never do A3Day podcast again, there's nothing wrong with that, because you're like, I've been there, done that, and I've achieved. I did what I set out to do. And so talk about being in this moment in your life. It's a transition moment where you're like, you know what? I don't necessarily have to do this 5-year retrospective. You know,
Absolutely.
I don't need to delve back. I don't need to delve back into that spot to say that what I did mattered. You know, like I think being able to move on is a very important part of the human experience.
Absolutely. I believe a lot of people plan and get hope in only one aspect of a full experience. We are fully aware that we're born, we live, and then we transcend to whatever your belief system makes next. For me, you either going up or you're going down. Much the same for the things that we experience. 7 years ago, I was in my early 30s and getting ready to leave the only continent I've ever known and blindly embark on something that I just had a notion about. I didn't have all of the tools, but I had enough, and I only had about $250 in my pocket when I left. And that level of wild abandon, I couldn't do at this age now. But there were things that had to be accomplished that also had to have a conclusion. Sometimes it can take a moment to get over those conclusions. You might not be finished, but the curtain is going down. You might still have it in you, but you have to be aware of, do I have the wherewithal? Do I have the time? Are my personal commitments and obligations going to be able to help me do what I want to do to the best of my ability? And if you can be honest with yourself about that, genuinely honest with yourself, then you can take your bow and back away. I stepped away June of last year from something I had known very intimately for 10 years and jumped into something that I've known relatively well for about 15, entrepreneurship. I've owned businesses multiple times in life. However, I got into business plan pitching competitions last year. One I had been pursuing for multiple years and just couldn't make the cut. And I didn't make the cut last year. But the other one, not only did I complete it, I was only one of 10 people over some 140 people who participated, and there were over 400 applicants. I walked away a winner. I walked away proving to myself that this business that I'm embarking on in this next phase of life, that this is the time that I can close the door to what I was doing with my entertainment business. Because I often flip flop, like, man, I would love to have a magazine again. Would you really? No, you wouldn't. Man, I would love to be able to do, media training and coaching again. You can, but not in the same capacity. You have to let that go. I don't think I'll ever let Korea go. And just saying that just made me close my eyes. I can't ever let go of that. It'll always be a little hole in my heart, that the desire to live there and to conclude life's journey there. won't happen in the way that I envisioned. But that door had to close as well. I would not be able to get to this point. I would not be where I am psychologically if I didn't understand the signs of close the door, take your bow. It should not hurt when you're doing whatever it is you're doing. And I'm not talking about the physical part of it. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to feel some pain, but it shouldn't hurt in here and in your heart when you think about doing something. It shouldn't exasperate you. You should still feel like, man, I got just a little bit left in me. I can do it. I can do it. Not, oh, I got a little bit left in me. I don't want to do it. When it turns into that, stop while you're ahead. We put ourselves in much more danger than we realize when we continue to push when we don't have to. So I'm going to cleave to that as I work through January. I pray that this is a slow moving January for me so that I don't rush into anything because of the mental excitement I have for it and it ends up taking too much from me. I learned entirely too much last year about listening to my body and not playing about that, to not let all of that life lesson just escape me and jump right back into some stupidity in this year.
Yeah, because like what you're saying about the whole, like, I can do this, I got this. A lot of people do it because they're trying to impress people externally, and that you're sacrificing, you're breaking your body down. For people who, when you're there physically, mentally, emotionally in pain, aren't around. You know, yeah. What's the payoff? You know, and money comes. Like me saying this as a very broke person at the moment. Like money comes and money goes.
Yeah, I mean it does.
But it's like, again, and it's like not only being like at the end of the day, are you proud of yourself and like your achievements or the things you say or do, but like, is your body gonna thank you for it at the end of the day? Like me having MS, I always have to check in with my body physically. I always have to listen to my body. I'm still learning at 40 years old, still learning how to listen to my body and letting my body tell me, yeah, you may want to do this, but you can't.
And it speaks differently as we age. We know what we know from the body we had 2 to 3 years ago, and it can change.
The body I had last year and the body I got now, like.
It can change so fast. And I know, there might be someone who listens to this and they're like, oh, y'all too young to have those complaints. Get that out your mind right now. There is no age on what's going on at a molecular, cellular level within the body. You can be the most clean eating, no alcohol consuming, never smoked a day in your life kind of person, and you are battling with something that was assigned to you for a reason. So, we have to change the way we talk about certain things and just keep it real.
Yeah, and I know people are going to be watching this and like, I came to watch them talk about K-pop. I'm like, again, at the beginning, K-pop is not the be all and the end all of everyone's life. And like, if you like, and like, okay, like for instance, like when I do interviews, like I talk to like filmmakers or whatever, and like it's about the film, but I also try to get them to talk about themselves too, to see people see the filmmaker behind the film. Absolutely. Whether it's an American film, whether it's a Korean film, a Japanese film, a Chinese film, or whatever. It's about humanizing the creators. Because like if you value, like you should value the creator as much as you value their creation.
You should, and that's absolutely should.
And for you. And that's why I was so proud of like when you were like, girls, we're gonna have to step away from the K-pop. But it was just like I actually took that as a example for myself. We're learning to step back. I have to learn to step back. Like I had my podcast. It's still there, but like Beyond the Romance, my drama podcast. I actually had to stop producing episodes because I got to the point where my brain was shutting down. My brain was like, I can't do this. I was sick for a very long time because I was doing Beyond the Romance. I was doing So Here's What Happened. I was doing Carolyn Talks. I was doing my writing, attending film festivals, doing Zoom interviews, and all of this coverage, all these different things. And it was, my body began to shut down, and it was just like, I had to give something up. And it was just like, the podcast is there. And ironically enough, I was checking back. And it's kind of like the same thing for your podcast. That my podcast, I'm getting more listens for the
now
podcast
that I'm not
than
doing it
when it was actively producing. Like, what is this?
now that I'm not doing
Going
it.
on?
Well, I'll make sure to leave everybody with some K-pop stuff since they did tune in for that. If they can last this long, then I'll make sure to share a few things. I am pitching some music to Black Swan, so be on the lookout for that. We don't necessarily know if it'll happen, but boy, if it does, I'll be proud to let everyone know. I believe ITZY has crested. The sun is getting ready to set on them. But I do like Born to Be. I still have not listened to New Jeans. I'm still all about NCT, and I am fully aware that I will never debut, so I have accepted it. And if you have not listened to TVXQ's 20th anniversary album, you need to sit down and prepare yourself. It is phenomenal.
I need to listen to that album because Changmin, and they do the things, but also Changmin's album was my favorite album. It was one of my favorite albums of that year.
Solid
let me go find the Negro spiritual within me. I went deep. And I was like, yes.
Absolutely solid. It absolutely is solid. There are other things that I hope to commentate on soon enough. I feel like segueing back into my blog is the safest forward step first before my voice becomes vocal again in the space. But there's a lot to be said. It's been a very interesting 5 years, and I'm very interested. I keep seeing everything numerically as, well, you did your first 10 years. Now this is year 1. What's next? So I'll be sure to let KCrush know first, whatever it is, after my Patreon patrons, because they know some stuff y'all don't know. But even still, this has been refreshing to share another side of the story, and with a publication that I deeply and greatly respect and value. I met them through one of the K-pop skate nights many years ago. So this was great. This is something that I didn't know I needed, but I'm glad I got to do it with you.
And I didn't mention it at the beginning, but like this year, 2024, is actually the 10th year anniversary of KCrush America. And me is like it feels so, I think that this is working with KCrush is a new chapter in my life and in my work, and like being able to work with like someone like Denise and the opportunities that I have working with her, and like starting off 2024 with you, someone who has had such a big hand in like my career over the last year, I think is like, to me, very personally speaking, is like it is I treasure for me. Like, I'm so happy that I'm starting off 2024 with them, talking with you, because like we're like, me and you, Denise, the site, we're all out. Like, I think 2024 is going to be a very pivotal moment in our lives. And yes, the world is in turmoil, and like these are things that have to be acknowledged. But then in our own personal lives, like I think 2024 is a year of like incredible change, positive change, and opportunities, and being able to maintain that outlook on life is very important, and being able to appreciate everything that you've been through and everything that and appreciate where you are and appreciate where you're looking to go is a vitally important part of being who you are as Ashley Borjon. And every time I see your name, I'm going to say like that.
Everyone does Ashley Borjon. I'm like, Borjon. I know it's fancy.
But like,
and this is the first time I've introduced myself to the K-pop consumers under this name. They've always known me as Ashley Griffin, or hey y'all, I'm Ashley multifaceted ACG Griffin. They've always known that. So this is my first time speaking to them as Ashley Borjon.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like having them know who you are rather than a persona.
Yep.
Of who you are. I think that's important. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I can't wait to see where you go. And I can't wait to hear where you go. And then when you spill the beans, when we start recording here, I got some things to talk to you about too. But like, I can't wait to see where you go and what you do. And for all the people, I hope you guys listened. If you listen to what Ashley has said, and like, it's okay to let things go. It's okay to move on. And it hurts. It hurts for a really long time, but
Yes, it
change is inevitable. You know, like that's entropy. That's the state of the universe we live in. Forever, like goes from one state up from one state to another state. You know, like nothing stays stagnant. You know, nothing stays the same. Like who you were yesterday is not who you were today, and who you're gonna be tomorrow is not going to be who you were today. Because you got to learn and you got to change and you got to grow. But again, thank you so much, Ashley. I can't wait to see you.
Absolutely.
Continue to grow.
Thank you. You too.
Yay! So we're gonna end the recording here. So bye.